and welcome for this second episode of our three-part webinar series powered by. Our webinar today will delve into transforming service into revenue driver with data and digitization. Today's agenda includes a presentation by Sarah Eklund, Director CX Strategy EMEA at Oracle. Will be followed by a panel discussion moderated by Ms. Harsha Tawani, Head of Digital Marketing with KPMG. Our panelists are Kodin Karajir, Chief Manager and Head of CX with Bank Muscat, Talal Al-Khalli, Development and Control Executive Director for KSA's National Water Company, and of course, Sarah Eklund from Oracle. Before I give the floor to Sarah, I would like to remind our attendees that the Q&A function is enabled, so feel free to ask questions throughout the session. The questions will be answered on the last segment. The chat function is also live, so feel free to engage with each other. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Sarah Eklund. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you so very much. I'm very happy to be here with you today and looking forward to this exciting discussion about a topic that is very, very timely and very, very expansive in today's digital market. So, service as a revenue driver. This is a very timely topic in today's market, and there are a lot of discussions as well as also a lot of research being done in terms of how this is evolving, the reasons for it, and which are the drivers behind it as well. If I lift some of the topics that has been raised in the public discussion, from Gartner's side, they state that already this year, 85% of the brand interactions will be handled by customer support. This is a very, very big amount and has a lot of implications both in the operations of a company as well as also the opportunity it means for creating a brand dialogue and a brand connection with the customer, between the customer and the company. Also, what Gartner states is that in a few years' time, and this is already, of course, ongoing, a very large part of the interactions will be proactive instead of reactive. And of course, this in itself has a lot of implications, both on how it's enabled, but it also means a lot of things in terms of how the business can be driven and the positive outcomes it brings with it. If diving a little bit deeper in what this means and how this is made possible and what is bringing this development to life, IDC as well as Gartner states that the processes very much are tied to both people, to process and business operations, as well as technology. If we go into some of the details and some of the KPIs that this entails, we can start with the people angle. And the people, of course, both is referring to the role of the employee as well as also the role of the customer. Speaking of the employee first, we know in today's digital world, which is both accelerated by the global pandemic and the general development towards digital business models, we know that engaged employees and employees that have a position as brand managers and brand dialogue carriers, they create a great benefit for the company they serve. It really is one of the key differentiators when it comes to outperforming competitors. Equally, when looking at the customers and looking at the people dimension here, we know that a holistic experience is really something that both impacts the value of the brand as well as also impacts the possibility of growing value and growing revenue in this digital world. Moving ahead into the process topic and the operations topic, we know that there are many different angles that have brought this to life. And if I lift some of them, I would point out the value of automation and assistant, and the fact that our customers across the market in different industries really are expecting to get a really personalized, but also a self-service focused type of experience, where they not only are taking part of transactional dialogue, but really are drivers and innovators of that experience. And here, technologies such as conversational AI, such as knowledge, really empowers them to not only being loyal and retained as customers in the face of the company, but also impacting their own satisfaction as well as also upsell and acquisition. Another angle in terms of process has to do with the role of omnichannel, and the way omnichannel not only is a way of diversifying the way the customers are interacting with the company, but really also how this can drive a personalized experience with this composable service interaction. Then, of course, technology. Technology underpins all of this, but technology becomes more of a driver and an enabler instead of a singular value and a singular starting point for this development. Data is one of the big drivers, and data really fuels the technology utilization and also connects the processes in an even more business driving manner. And of course, the evolvement and adoption of cloud, which entails that there are platforms that can cater for this type of innovation and cater for this agility in the face of change. That's really also important. Now, moving into some of the detailed areas that I already mentioned, and I would like to dive deeper into data, into automation, and also into what this entails for the business models. Speaking of the data, clearly we know that across the interactions that the customers has with the company, they leave a lot of customer signals. And the way the company can lift and react and also predict these customer signals, that is also a driver for how well the brand is thriving in this digital economy. Utilizing this data across different processes and across the company makes sure that this holistic experience comes into play and that every interaction with the brand, regardless if it's in marketing, in sales, in service, in billing, and many other things, that it's really consistent. This consistency has a direct impact on the lifetime value of the customer, as well as thereby also on the growth of the company. Moving to some of the use cases where this entails, and these are just a few examples that we see across the globe when working with enterprises in this exciting transition towards service as a revenue driver. We know that data can fuel really authentic and personalized experience with the brand. So, for example, making sure that the customer data is striving to route them to the right person when they need to speak about something important, either to solve a problem or get advice in terms of how to leverage the company's services and products in the best way. So this attribute-based routing is really a growing trend. Equally, another trend is to leverage the customer data across the digital journey and ensuring that this data is impacting how the next step of the interaction will look like. Like, for example, if a customer has been experiencing some troubles in invoicing, for example, and is slightly aggravated and dissatisfied in the face of this, then this knowledge and this data can be the trigger of a certain type of campaign or a certain type of tone in the dialogue in the service interaction. And this can in itself drive a much more positive experience. So really this data that drives holistic processes from the service interaction into further interactions of purchases, this is really exciting. Equally, I already mentioned marketing. Equally, the service interactions can be the trigger of further marketing segmentation and ensuring that the type of communication and brand dialogue that is subjected to the customer really is spot on and valuable and reflects the type of journey that the customer will take with the company. There's a lot of opportunities with data. Moving then into automation and assisted services, clearly there are many different angles to automation. And one of the key drivers here is that automation really is aimed to creating a leverage, to creating a simpleness and an effortlessness in the way that the customer can interact with the company, and thereby leaving room for more deeper advisory conversations that enriches the customer's brand experience and thereby also prolongs the relationship and the value that is driven between the two parties. Looking at the different automation use cases that we see across the market, they span from simple task automation into more of a kind of orchestration type of interaction. And if I bring some examples of all of them, in terms of task automation, clearly this is very much about reducing the effort in a certain routine process. One example is Her Majesty's Land Registry in UK, where they, in the face of the pandemic, decided to automate a lot of their land registry processes that are both extremely data intensive as well as also extremely complex. They succeeded in doing this in just a few weeks at the same time as their whole staff was moving back into working remotely last spring, the spring of 2020. And this type of task automation, not only did it create a lot of agility in terms of how these processes were made, but it also strengthened the satisfaction and experience that the customers had in feeling that yes, this governmental board really is close to me and really is answering to my needs in even the face of change. Then, of course, process design is the next step, going from singular task automation into more complex entities. And here we see a lot of examples of how automation and also the addition of digital assistants can not only ensure that something simple and some simple process is made very quick, but also enriching that experiences and driving a bit of confidence. An example in this is the logistics company Hermes that decided to leverage a digital assistant in a certain process to facilitate the logistics and delivery question type of situations. What happened here was that they in an instance reduced their chat and phone interactions because the customers, when being in dialogue with their Holly digital assistant, they felt that they had the answers they need. They were ensured that they were going to get the package and get the value that was promised, and they felt that they were taken care of. Really exciting. Simple example, but still it also shows the power of what this automation can bring. Taking this power even further and going into orchestration, this can also mean that you can start impacting the type of business models that you have and ensuring that the automation of certain elements in the process can enable you to be even closer to the customer. And here we have examples such as DHL, such as Denon, and also other types of very complex companies in a B2B2C model. And here they not only could enable a last mile field service delivery by automating certain elements in the process, but also ensuring that all of the different stakeholders, both companies and end customers, had a personalized experience when interacting with them. When talking about automation, not only processes are in scope, but also how you, by automating and by leveraging channels in this automation process, can create this type of composable digital first experience. And composable in the sense that usually not one process or not one channel is enough. Both because of that customers are different, but also because the processes are different, and sometimes the moments that drive value need to have a different look and feel depending on the type of customer it entails. So as you can see from the little diagram here on the right, it's very common in today's service strategies to really leverage combinations of these different channels and thereby create this type of composable service design. And I really look forward to going deeper into this topic also in the panel. Then coming to the brand experience, and I already commented in this several times, because clearly both data, channels, automation, and the general way of looking at service is bringing us to this point where we see service as a key driver for business and not only a key driver for transactions or a certain part of the journey. What this means, of course, is that we can see now business models rising where service takes a really important position. Not only models where subscription is a key model, where, of course, service has a very special role to play, but also in more traditional business models where service all of a sudden becomes part of the offering by being consulted, advising, and kind of providing that layer of that premium experience. We also can see that service is bringing the organization closer to each other and making sure that the silos that maybe previously were there between marketing, sales, and service are coming more together. And all of a sudden, all employees become brand managers and all moments becomes brand carrying. And this is really exciting also in the way how this can make sure that organizations now work remotely, become closer to each other by sharing KPIs, by sharing goals, and by sharing processes in many ways as well. Of course, in terms of technology, and we also already mentioned this, that there are many, many innovations and many exciting things that both impact the user experience as well as customer experience across these different moments. And of course, what this means is that we are looking by technology to ensure both customers and employees are empowered to carry out this important mandate of being the brand manager. And finally, what this means for the customer is that this really answers to the customer's need of being an innovator, an impactor in the brand experience, and not only a receiver of the products and services. Looking at what this means in terms of the business, and I already mentioned KPIs, clearly the KPIs and the business, the way of driving this business value is changing. And instead of looking at service as something in the end of the customer journey that has KPIs more focused on speed and time and solving problems, all of a sudden the KPIs become more customer-centric. Focusing on effort scores, on upsell opportunities. Also, the service KPIs turn more into the direction of empowering the customer and being that advisor and making sure that the customer dialogue not only is quick, but also maybe even more importantly, is bringing the customer into a state of value, satisfaction, and retention. Effectively, KPIs such as customer lifetime value and effort scores really are rising in importance. Looking at different companies across the globe that have taken this journey together with us and together with other companies as well, we can see pretty evident patterns of what are the drivers of value in that regard. Here, if I mention a few of them, Amman Bank made the decision of utilizing a consistent service platform with a variety of channels in order to be available for the customer 24/7. And at that point, not only driving cost savings, but even more importantly, driving quicker resolving answers to the customers at any point of need. And this has a great impact on the way they could drive their business and move ahead into the digital business model in the bank. Specialty, consumer goods company, they leverage a multilingual platform in order to empower their enthusiasts, their customers, with information about the products, and not only in that regard facilitate the dialogue and being available in serving them, but also ensuring that the customers could add in of their own experience and passion for the product, so the T in this case. And here we see a great example of how this dialogue really becomes bi-directional and thereby creates more value than if it only would be one direction. And then the final example here on the slide, Kenya Revenue Authority, who decided that they wanted to amplify their brand by being more available, being more effortless, and being more clear and transparent in the context with their customers. And here they leveraged both process automation that I mentioned some examples of before, but also very much offered a way of being in interaction by different channels, and thereby making sure that the perception of the brand and perception of tax compliance all of a sudden wasn't that complex and maybe scary as it might have been before, because of course tax is a complex topic, but by transparency they made it confident bringing and they made it trustful. And that was one of the great wins that this type of service strategy entailed for them. So to come to the end of my short presentation, clearly we can see that service interactions really matter. We also see that there are many paths to take in order to empower these type of brand experience where service take a very important and big role. And the final question remains, are we ready across the market for really facilitating 85% of the customer experience by service? And by this, I would love to give over to Harsha to continue the discussion about these topics and more.
Thanks so much, Sarah. It indeed was a very, very insightful presentation, especially that 85% of customer interaction is happening through service departments. It's like a big eye-opener. So you know what? In COVID-19, this whole pandemic has really changed the consumer behavior around the world. We are seeing new attitudes and values are emerging. So the customers are becoming increasingly digital. They display unfamiliar patterns of demand and develop specific physical needs driven by social distancing. So how should the businesses transform their enterprise to compete for these new customers? Like, what is that right balance between, say, a human interaction and automation? that needs to be thought of. And Sarah, let's hear it from you. And I would really be interested to hear from Cordin as well, because banking is one sector where we see a lot of transformation.
Absolutely. To quickly begin with this exciting topic, when it comes to creating that balance between automation and really human interaction, it's both a matter of knowing the customers really well, leveraging the data to know where that human interaction makes sense and where it drives really strong value, and where the customer rather would like to self-serve at a point, up to a point of need. And that kind of being sensitive to the customer signals and being sensitive to the segments and types of customers, that's one of the keys in really creating that type of trustful communication. And of course, being present where the customer is another kind of pointer in order to make this possible. And that presence is very connected to the proactivity that I mentioned earlier. So effectively inserting proactively certain elements of dialogue, like proactive chats or proactive digital assistants, and even proactive call-ups where it makes sense. Cordin, would love to hear from the banking perspective.
Yeah, Cordin, how are you handling the new customers, as we call it?
Thank you so much, Sarah, for the presentation, first of all, and hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon to all our attendees. I believe I would start with the key word when it comes to the new customer, and generally when we talk about customers. I like to use the word empathy. I think it's the fundamental way of actually understanding and visualizing our customers' realities. And we do have very nice methodologies and tools to have this in place. Design thinking, it's probably an amazing methodology that more and more industries are capitalizing on them. In the same time, you have, for example, personas. You can group your customers into different personas which go beyond the traditional segmentations utilized in the industries. You understand actually the lifestyle. You understand actually the objectives of life objectives of these people. People are not banking. Their objective is not necessarily to have all the time transactions. They wake up in the morning, oh, I want to go to the bank, I want to do this and that. Things should go beyond. The banking industry traditionally comes from this transactional perspective, has some constraints, not only from the regulation perspective, but also from the IT infrastructure legacy, because it's been driven by each and every department necessities, historically speaking. So nobody looked end to end what's going on. Nobody thought that at a certain point in time, banking is just now a little component in somebody's life, and the banks should enlarge their ecosystems. I like very much to believe that sooner or later the banks will become invisible. They will be embedded in different moments in people's life. When it comes to empathy and personas, another important question, because we keep saying banks should deliver value. What value means to me might be very different what value means for Sarah, for everyone else here in the room, because we are at different stages in our lives. We have different priorities and goals. Now, if one organization is capable of understanding that there is a common expectation, I would say, for all of us, speed, convenience. There is no brainer here. We want things fast. We don't call Google, for example, to ask what happened with our email, like we are calling our bank to know what's happening when we transfer money. So this set of core basic expectations banking industry should put them in place, and usually here automation plays a very critical role. If a simple transaction doesn't happen as per these expectations, customers will not go ahead. They are not willing to go ahead for more complex things. So how you do this in terms of how you capture this understanding? You need really to bring your customers, and you have multiple tools here. Surveys are one of them, but you get, let's say, quantitative results. Then you need to spend time and observe. This is how you reach to empathy. Go to the customers' places and observe what's going on over there. Bring them in focus groups. So when you aggregate all this information, you can have a pretty fair picture about what these people are looking. Here in Oman, for example, we noticed in the beginning of the pandemic, people started to lose their patience. We were having pretty fair satisfaction scores when it comes to solving inquiries and complaints, customer service part. Again, we were having pretty fair NPS effort score across some of the critical journeys we mapped and we improved. After the pandemic, somewhere March, April last year, we noticed that if a satisfaction was somewhere around 3.9 out of 5 or 4 out of 5, it dropped somewhere to 3.3, 3.4, following the same process. So nothing changed in the process itself. It was just the anxiety. And that anxiety, we had to figure it out how to mitigate it and how to change some of the touch points in order to drive this reduction of anxiety. How you can send an auto message setting the expectations. Bear with us, it will take 2 days this time. How to constantly be in touch with the customer and give updates without asking the customer to follow up with you. These are practical examples, but you need to have a strong sense and a good radar from all these sources. This is overall my story for now, for this question.
That's excellent. Yeah, being proactive, I think, has helped a lot of organizations. And I'll come to you, Talal, now. I mean, just like banking, I think even the utility sector is also, the digitization is accelerating, and, you have to look at your customer service side of things. So what do you think has been the biggest challenge for you and your company when it comes to customer experience and their satisfaction? Talal, I think you are on mute.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Talal.
Yeah, my voice clear? You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I think now the big challenge, especially I'm working in utilities company, it's a semi-government company. The biggest challenge now, the transformation and the digitalization for all the practice of the company. Actually, now we have a big challenge with our data, with our automation system. We need a good solution to enhance our customer experience, our billing, our collection, increase our revenue, and optimize our cost optimization. Actually, we have more than 2 million customer, vital customer. We build them regularly every month. Till now, all our customers consider the water as a charity of the government because the tariff before 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it was negligible, approximately nothing. But now, after modernization and privatization, they increase the tariff. People recognize the suddenly increase of the water tariff, very angry. The complaint within 2 years ago increase from 1 kilo customer per month now reach around 100,000 complaints regularly every month. Yeah, we need solution to compromise our customer, to we interact with them 24 hours, provide various channels like emails, live chat, video chat, whatever, to make use the opinion public in the street and find some solution. This is a brief about my company or my customer, the challenge we faced.
Great. Yeah, I think what I'm hearing more is the communication between the company and the customer has to be really strong and solid, which also makes me think we do hear the consumers a lot, and a healthy communication is definitely needed to customize what you're offering. But somewhere there's also like a threat of losing the relevancy. Sometimes your core business is something, but because you've been talking to the customer so much and you know their demands so well, that you keep offering things that go beyond your core service, and gradually that relevancy kind of gets diluted. So Gordon, if I may ask you, what are the qualities needed to deliver excellence, create loyalty, drive growth, and yet remain relevant?
Most customer, as my expertise when I work in the customer care, most customer, they don't care about the service quality as much. They complain and be anger when anything hit their package. When you increase the tariff, when the invoice is incorrect, or sometimes the invoice amount increase suddenly without a proper justification. The average bill is 100, 200 per month, then is increased suddenly to 500, 600 riyals. They complain. But about the surface quality, everyone has a water, reach water in his valve, and can obtain in different sources of the water, from tanker or from our tanker initiative. But most of customer complaints about the billing accuracy and the problem with the tariff.
Understand. Gordon, what would you say?
What?
Yes, Harsha. When it comes to quality, I will start from employee perspective. You need to make sure that the ones that are interacting with customers, or the one that are designing solutions for customers, the way you recruit your employees are very much these people should be very much aligned with the core values that you are preaching as an organization. And again, you have this opportunity now to identify through proper instruments who are the people who genuinely have a certain behavior, a certain values, attitudes, and so on. And it's much cheaper for the organization, because you don't need very much to train these people how to behave with a customer. So if you recruit, first of all, the right behaviors and the right mindsets, then you have a higher likelihood of things, first of all, to be delivered consistently, and secondly, to have that core, how should I say, determination. Let's improve. Let's care about what's going on with each and every case that we have. We have, again, across industries, a tendencies of looking at numbers from, let's say, a very narrow angle. by default, we have limited resources, so then we need to focus on those things that matter. So, for example, when it comes to complaints, first logical, let's say, reaction is, okay, what are my main categories of complaints? How much percentage do they have? I have 15% complaints about, I don't know, cash deposit machines. I have for accounts another 10%, and so on and so forth. But in the end, each and every experience in itself, it's very relevant because it's relevant for that person, and that person will talk about it in a positive or negative way. So, and this is impacting loyalty. So another quality is to actually look holistically and not ignoring. Yes, you can prioritize, but don't ignore those tiny little things that apparently they are not creating a big problem right now, because first of all, sooner or later they might boom, and secondly, you need to look at them from the perspective of why something bad is happening in the first place, why we have all these gaps, why we cannot actually deliver consistently end to end. Is it, as Sarah was mentioning, the three pillars? It's a people issue, it's a process issue, or it's a technology issue, or all three combined. So recruit, first of all, people with a right mindset and attitude. Track each and every complaint and use it as a gold source to understand what's going on, to apologize, to try to prevent it in the future. In this way, you create loyalty, and that specific quality that is about creating special moments for different customers. Being relevant, remaining relevant as an organization is definitely if you are relevant for each and every of your customer. Again, we have tendencies to look at customers from how much money we make from one segment or another, and we focus more on the more profitable ones, and so on, which again is somehow not really the right approach if you want to actually grow as an organization and to adopt more and more customers from different categories. Pretty much this is my adds on here.
And that's an excellent analysis of the whole thing, and how we can really, remain relevant yet kind of deliver excellence and create loyalty. Now, Sarah, going back to your point on 85% of all customer interaction is through service department, and it seems like it'll increase only in future. So what our audiences would like to know is, what are the implications on the business model? How companies are moving from, say, a transactional service-based approach to a strategic service-based approach, and how important is it?
Absolutely. This is a really, really exciting topic. And clearly what this entails is that, of course, it both is one of the drivers to transitioning to digital business models, where a very large part of both transactions, but also the dialogue takes place digitally. And then at that point, clearly the companies need to look at the customers in slightly different way, and also design journeys that really brings this quality that you mentioned, Corinne, and really is both leveraging the possibilities of listening to the customers, learning from the patterns that they provide to improve, but also at the same time drive this confidence in the different types of moments, even in the moments that might start with a really negative feeling from the customer side. Another really interesting pattern has to do with how the organizations are set up to empower this possibility and empower these type of models. And here we can see one of the really clear trends in how the leadership is established, and the kind of transition of important operations such as service and marketing and sales under a chief customer officer type of unit. And here we can see one of the clear patterns in how we are going away from silo and going more into joint values and joint KPIs. And when I mentioned the KPIs earlier, and I had a rich slide with many different line items, we can see that these KPIs are joining up together and are not only looking at speed and effort of transaction, but also are looking at what is the value and what is the longitudinal impact that this transaction is driving. Another thing that I also would like to mention, and it's very much connected to the value of service in itself, and I really agree with what was said earlier, that being relevant and really grasping the different needs of the customers and different situations of the customer is really important. And here we can see also the value of being really transparent, because in the face of digital, when the distance still is very big, and I think this is not going to end, we're still going to do a lot of things digitally going forward and saving the human interactions and live interactions for very special cases. At that point, transparency is key. Transparency in terms of that we listen to you. We show you what the process entails and what this means when you participate in the process, and also being clear on what the outcomes are. And this might be even in such simple processes such as application for certain products or services, or application for getting money back if something has gone wrong or the likes. Transparency in the digital context is one of the key drivers. And I think this both actually goes for the customer interaction as well as for the employee interaction to empower them being these brand managers.
That's excellent. Talal, I'll come to you again. From an internal organization perspective, so for example, CEO, leadership, board, how much buy-in do you have from them to these kind of concepts, to these kind of realities that we are facing every day? Because I think traditionally the leadership knew their product, they knew how to sell it, and listening to the customer or being sensitive to the customer wasn't like a thing, or wasn't as evolved as it is now. So what do you think? Do we need more maturity at a leadership level still? Or do you think the behavior has changed and we are seeing a lot of buy-in from them for these kind of things, for doing more surveys, to understanding customers? Because obviously it involves cost, and it involves an agreement from the leadership to do these activities. So what do you think?
I think the new generation, the behavior is changed because they are aware about the utilities company and the service. We suffering with the old people, 60 and plus age, who own the home. Still till now, I think this is service didn't pay because we offered by the government, but the new people who own the house and have services, they paid their invoice regularly and not bothering us. Most of the complaint, it came from the old people. They are very angry about the new tariff, about the mechanism of the service, but the behavior will be changed. I think within more 15 years, inshallah, everything will be is good from our customer perspective. Also, now the channels between the customer and the company will increase. We have a fabulous channel to contact with us. Also, we have independent employee watching their opinion in Twitter or the social network, reply to them. Before 5 years ago, when we announce about any initiative or any declaration from the company, most of the people write in the comment they are unsatisfied with the company and say it's bad situation, bad service. Now these people will decrease, time by time will be decreased. Before 2 months ago, some people very, very angry. Some people go to the minister directly and complain. But I think the behavior will be changed within a few years, inshallah.
Yeah, you're right. And Gordon, I think when it comes to banking, it's a more matured, probably kind of a sector, especially when it comes to
the bank sector is different. It's different, different completely from utilized company.
Yeah.
And also it is a semi-government company, not private 100%.
Of course. But also, I think you have slightly less competition than probably banks who have competition at local level as well as global level.
We only the one. We don't have competition or competitor in the market. Yeah, we only one.
Yeah. So Gordon, in banking, what do you think? What the buy-in, a leadership buy-in looks like, and do you think there is a need for that particular segment within the organization to recognize these things more, or the recognition is there?
I was ex-banker. I think everything is obvious in the banks. I think the complaints or the listener utilities and telecommunication company, because you sign in your loans or you sign in your credit card, everything is clear for you, right? Everything. The complaints is negligible, nothing comparing with the utilities company or the water company, because something not tangible like a loan. You took the money, you agree about the loan after 5 years, you pay it with the percentage or whatever. You know everything, right? Yeah. But in the water company, some people is maybe there is a leakage, maybe is the wrong reading, maybe there is many reasons people put in their consideration, not like bank. I was in Riyadh Bank, one of the biggest major bank in Saudi Arabia. All the complaint about the transaction, about the systematic withdrawal or something like that, but especially about the service, I never heard about the service, because
yes,
you agree.
You're right. Yeah. Let's hear from Gordon also, considering that he's right now in a bank. Gordon, what is your take on that?
I just realized that we were probably colleagues, but not in the same time. I used to be in Riyadh Bank as well for 5 years, Talal.
Oh.
I would start from the perspective that you were asking basically about the buy-in of leadership, if it's there, and how it can be influenced and so on. I believe fundamentally more and more banks and C-level of banks across the world are realizing that there is a trend in terms of products and services are more of a commodity for banks. Even if you bring up a new product, a new value proposition on the market, it's very easy to do the copy paste. And what is actually making the very big difference is the experience itself that you are offering, the overall value for money. So how you actually wrap up this value proposition and deliver it anywhere, anyhow, through different channels. I would also add that increasingly there is a recognition that happens at the C-level. Financial story is not necessarily saying everything. CX people should speak finance, definitely, in order to be able to influence things. There are still a lot of examples where you actually need to build a business case properly with numbers in order to convince that, yes, that's the right direction, let's invest in that direction. And C-level is understanding, because again, data is now available. A lot of research reports are everywhere. Sarah was showing Gartner, and there are at least a couple of companies who are sharing on a yearly basis very interesting insights in terms of what is the ROI of customer experience, for example. How many points of NPS increase? What is the impact on the operational revenue? What is actually the cost of onboarding new customers versus the cost of retaining the existing ones? So once CX is, because there is a, how should I say, there is a tendency here, and I think any CX person during his or her career went through this tendency. You are very enthusiastic to drive improvements, and you are very much keen to show nice pictures with the journeys and meet with customers and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, if you don't show how that improvement is equally beneficial, not only from CX perspective, but internally for the organization,
return on investment,
how you translate it to the bottom line, and obviously from the other side, from the customer side, then you miss the chance to convince.
Yeah, rightly said. And I think in interest of time, we'll take one last question, which has been answered by Sarah, I think. But yeah, I think the question was around why do we need to revisit the brand experience when service has always been the key reason for customer perception of the brand experience. And I think Sarah has rightly answered here, but I think it's about evolving more than changing or revisiting something. And there are a lot of reasons. The times have changed. Digitization has changed a lot of things, and pandemic completely changed the way people are behaving, customers are behaving. But I would say, if you have more questions, this is to the audiences. If you have more questions, you can reach out to our experts, Sarah, Cordin, and Talal. And I hope, Vishal, your question is answered. And in the interest of everybody's time, I would conclude here. Thank you so much to all our panelists. And thanks a lot, Faris. Faris, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you all for an interesting session and a great conversation. I'd like to thank Oracle for facilitating this webinar. And as you mentioned, Harsha, if any of you have any follow-up questions, or you can reach out to Sarah through oracle.com. Team will be there to pick up any query. And yeah, they'll be happy to assist with all your CX and digitization needs. So thank you everyone. And we hope to see you for our next episode. Have a great day.